right, let's go ahead and get started, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our Saturday afternoon panel here at the 2025 Iskali Conference. My name is Jonathan Hernandez, and it is an absolute honor to be up here on the stage sharing it with this prestige panelists today. There we go. Today's theme is rooted in something called to build hope. Okay. And before I get started, I'd like to give a huge shout out to my wife, Guadalupe Martinez, in the back. She has provided me a lot of love and support to be up here, and even some regañadas con amor, as I say. So I really appreciate it. And of course, for Pablo for the invitation. As we look around this room, we see leaders. I see passion. I see love. I see dreamers. I see change makers in this audience. And you are all people who believe that faith isn't just something that we carry, it's something that we build with. Today we gather not just to talk about hope, but to deeply understand how we live it, how we share it, and how we pass it on, especially to the next generation here. So let me quickly introduce you to our beautiful panel here. We have Mireya Guzman, a rising leader in finance and member of Iskali's junior board. We have Martin Cabrera, founder and CEO of Cabrera Capital, a visionary in business and community development. We have Cristina Lamas, executive director of the National Federation for Catholic Youth Ministry, a national voice for youth and faith formation. And we have Jose Gonzalez, a seminarian whose journey reflects deep transformation and bold discipleship. And before we dive into the conversation, I'll give each of our panelists a moment to share a bit about themselves, their work, and what brings them here today. So, Jose, I'll go ahead and start with you.
You were going to start over there. Okay. Thank you.
I tricked you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jose Cruz Gonzalez, but everyone knows me as El Profe. Oh gosh, yeah. I was just telling someone that walking in here just brought me back to when I led my retreat about 3 years ago. So yeah, I'm from Chicago. I am of Mexican descent. My parents were born in Mexico. They were born in Michoacan. So, yeah. And yeah, I'm 31 years old. I entered seminary about 3 years ago, and yeah, I'm going into my 4th year. Time goes by super fast. Currently, I am staying at Mother of the Americas Parish, working, just doing volunteer work, and yeah, just trying to be useful. Yeah, that's what I have.
Thank you, Jose. Yeah.
It is. Good afternoon. My name is Cristina Lamas, and I now reside in Maryland. I was born and raised in Southern California. First generation. My parents were born in Zacatecas.
There's one.
Born and raised in Southern California. There's 8 of us in the family. I am the oldest of the second of our group of my siblings. I have a daughter. She is 15, so I'm raising a teenager. And now my parents have moved in with me, and my 2 younger siblings have moved in. So I have 3 generations now that are living under one household, and oh, they're interesting times. I work for the National Federation for Catholic Youth Ministry, a position that I've served as the first Latina taking on this role. I'm very humbled and honored that I serve in this capacity. Almost 10 years next year, and I thank God every single day that I'm in the role, but I'm always scoping out who the next executive director will be. And who knows, maybe you are in this room. So I'm here Thanks to Vicente and his invitation, and I'm honored to share a little bit about my story. So, thank you.
Thank you, Christina.
Good afternoon. My name is Martin Cabrera. I'm the CEO of Cabrera Capital. So we are an investment bank and institutional brokerage firm, and we also have a real estate development company. We're headquartered in Chicago, but we have about 8 offices around the country and 1 in London. And I grew up in La Villita, and my parents are from Durango and San Luis Potosí. And a lot of folks from Durango, San Luis Potosí, and La Villita too. So, I went to school at Northern Illinois University. I spent a little time in London as well, and I was working out there and going to school, and then came back here. And I have been always drawn back to the church as well, even going through some struggles when I drifted away from the church and then coming back. But I serve on different boards. I currently co-chair kind of the capital campaign here for Iskali. And also, I just finished my term as chair of the board for St. Ignatius College Prep. And I'm on the Cardinals Archdiocese Finance Council, where I oversee the real estate for them. And serve on a lot of other boards too, Homeboy Industries out of Los Angeles with Father Greg Boyle, and other boards for the state and for the city. But I think it's always my Catholic faith is I always try to keep it growing and getting closer and closer. But I've been fortunate and blessed, and I have 5 kids and a beautiful wife, and they range. One just graduated from Holy Cross, and the other one is at Claremont McKenna, and then my boys are 12 and twins are 11. And at soccer games right now. So I've been very blessed and happy to be here.
Thank you, Martin. It sounds like you need more to do. Mireya?
Hello. Okay. Hi, everyone. Mireya Guzman. It's an honor to be here with you all today and to speak along all of you. I am Mexican. I was born in Durango, Mexico, and I moved here to Illinois at the age of 6. I'm the youngest of 4, and I currently work for CRG, a real estate investment and development firm. I graduated from Dominican University, where I majored in economics and Spanish literature. And I've been working in finance since. And I've been a part of the Iskali family since 2015 when I lived my initiation retreat. And I currently serve as the co-founder and the co-chair, along with Jonathan, on the junior board.
Okay. Thank you all for those beautiful introductions, truly. Let's begin our conversation with something foundational, hope itself. Our first question is titled, Rooted in Hope, What Drives Your Mission? Hope is a powerful force that sustains and inspires us. What drives you to be a builder of hope in your field, whether it's in business, ministry, or leadership? And how does your faith influence this mission? So I'll start with Mireya on my right here.
So I would say for me, hope has been the foundation of everything I've achieved. Like I just shared, I'm a first generation, born in Mexico. We moved here when I was 6 years old, and I didn't speak, none of my siblings and I spoke any English when we arrived here. So I did kindergarten in a small town in San Jose de la Boca, Durango, arriba la sierra. And I did kindergarten there, but once we arrived here, I was enrolled in Whittier Elementary School in Northlake, Illinois, and they had a sister school for bilingual kids, but I was able to go to Whittier because my tia, my mom's sister, worked there as a teacher assistant. So they said, she could do kindergarten here, but she has to do kindergarten again because she doesn't speak any English. So I went from being in a kindergarten classroom in a small town of 40 people in Durango to being in an elementary school with 300 kids and not knowing a word of English. So I remember having to rely on Latinos were everywhere. So I remember having to rely on my Latino Spanish-speaking classmates to tell my teacher, like, hey, I need to go to the bathroom or to ask a question. And I remember like having hope that one day I would be able to communicate for myself. So that's just a little bit of background. And then I would say fast forward to high school, my senior year of high school, when everyone starts talking about college. I had hope that I could, go to college immediately after high school, but I know I was also realistic. Like I knew that it wasn't realistic and that my parents couldn't financially support me through college and college tuition. So at one point I did think like, okay, maybe I'll take a gap year or two and work full time and start saving till I could have money to bridge, for my tuition. But I had hope that like I could do it, and I really relied on that hope. And I would just say that hope is not just faith, it's also faith in action. So that hope led me to take action to actually apply for college and apply to scholarships and not let the fear of, well, what if I don't get selected, or what if they don't give me the scholarship and I was just wasting my time applying for it. And that hope led me to actually take the action, and I did it. I got Dominican was obviously what I chose. It was a great choice, a small Catholic university, but also was the best financial decision for me. And there was a lot of moments when I doubted myself. I was a full-time student, but I was working 2 to 3 part-time jobs to, bridge the gap between my scholarships. So that's a little bit about how hope, led me to start my career and actually take that step and not let the fear of taking out loans or, paying for college stop me. And, God provided.
I think for myself, when I think of hope and faith, I think one, it's looking at the audience as well, and I always enjoy the Iskali galas too, because it's seeing our youth and so much passion and love. And I think back to when I was that age, I was like, I didn't have that, and to see it in our young Latino youth. It's inspiring. And it was funny because my wife and I were at the gala, and it was a time where Vicente called all of the Iskali members out onto the dance floor. And after hearing all the stories, and my wife works for Citibank, and we're talking to each other, we're like, we want to go and hire all of them because they're so passionate, they're loved, they're good people, they care with their hearts. And they're out there working a couple of jobs, going to school as well. And I see that hope and that faith. And I know that there's a lot of struggles that we all go through. And even as a kid, I was not like the best kid in the class or even like in the neighborhood. I was usually the one getting into trouble. And I liked fighting when I was a kid. And I ended up getting into some trouble and joining a gang when I was about 9 years old, and I was able to get out when I was about 11. But I was getting into a lot of bad things, and I knew that I had to change, and my brother was kind of putting pressure on me to, hey, you can't be doing this. And I was able to get out of it through sports. And even during that time in high school, I wasn't really in grammar school and in high school, I wasn't really close in my Catholic faith. And it wasn't until high school that one of my vice principals, he was an Irish guy Connie Ryan, he's like, Martin, you're Mexican. He's like, how could you not be Catholic and be going to church? I was like, I don't know. It's like we just, my family drifted away from the Catholic Church. And so he invited me to go back to go on a retreat. And there was a large group of us. It was, I think, junior year or senior year of high school, but a large group of guys that he invited to come out. And it's like, well, Mr. Ryan, you can come pick us up at my house because everybody was going to sleep over my house. And we had, I think it was homecoming that night, so we had a party afterwards by my house. So everyone was up late, and so Mr. Ryan showed up, and nobody else wanted to go. They're like, no, we're not going to go. So I came out. He's like, where are the rest of the guys? It's like, they're not going to come, Mr. Ryan. He's like, what do you mean they're not going to come? And so it was just me that went on this silent retreat to the Abbey of Gethsemane in Kentucky. And it was my first retreat, but it was so wonderful because you got to spend time, and I didn't know what to do, but really spend time with God and walking in the mountains. And like, here was this kind of Irish guy who became my mentor, and my father had just passed away a couple of years before that. And he just saw that, hey, this kid needs a chance. And I think seeing that in me, that he helped me out, there was another teacher as well. And just to see that, like, they didn't really know much, that, like, myself and some of the other guys from the neighborhood, we just needed a chance and some opportunities. And they helped us get into college and really kind of like come back to the Catholic Church as well, and learning more about myself, but also about my faith, and even getting started in college and getting some internships. And in my first job, it was a little tough because there wasn't a lot of Latinos in the investment world. And I remember we used to have to make 450 phone calls a day to complete strangers and ask them to send over $300,000 so we can invest their money. So you get a lot of people hanging up on you and, swearing at you, calling you names. And you just pick up the next number and start calling. And there was a call coming in, and all the other brokers were on the phone, but it was during the market hours that were open. So I was like, well, let me answer. Nobody's answering the phone. There might be somebody who wants to place a trade. So I picked up the phone. I said, Oldie Stockbrokers. And one of the other brokers, he's like, you're supposed to be making outgoing phone calls, you little spick. And I was like, so I grew up in a little village. So I jumped up and I was like, gonna go and punch this guy. And I was like, I've gotta calm down. I can't let the neighborhood come out of me. And I was like, okay, how am I gonna show him? And probably other people are thinking that. I was like, I gotta show him in business. So I would come in at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'd stay till about 11 o'clock at night. And probably within 6 months, I was a top producing broker, which really ate these guys up. But some of the other younger guys like, hey, what are you doing? What do you do? I was like, well, I stop in the church at St. Peter's around the corner and just pray for 10 minutes, and then I come into work. So all of a sudden, there's a lot of other guys coming to church too, and but it was nice, and we would just talk about it. And some weren't Catholic either, but it really showed me that I was like, I can help bringing people to God in different ways at work. It doesn't just have to be at church, and I try to continue to do that and share with people, whether they're Catholic or non-Catholic, and tell them. And some that are non-Catholic, tell them about who Jesus is. And even some of my friends that are starting to discover it, even, they're like, I'm a little old to be learning about Jesus. I was like, no, it doesn't matter. There's never too late to start. But I know we can have that hope and share that with a lot of people, and it's by our actions as well. So.
Thank you, Martin. It sounds like determination, working hard, and faith got you there.
And God's blessings, too.
Exactly. Christina?
When I think of hope, I think of Christ. And so for me, the word hope means Christ. And so from the very young age, I've been rooted in Christ in my life, in the sense that someone once believed in me, and that has always stuck with me. That someone took a risk and a chance in me, that saw something in me that I never thought. And I can recall a special moment when I was 14 years old. I've mentioned I have 8 siblings, but I have one sister who's 1 year younger than me. And so they said we were always the gemelas growing up because we were just a year and 17 days apart. And so one day my mom said, come with me. And being the obedient daughters, we're like, where are we going? And that's all we asked. Other than that, we didn't ask any more questions. And she put us in the car, and we went around the corner to the church. And then we went into the parking lot, we parked, and then she opened the door to religious ed. The DRE said hello. My mom turned, said goodbye, and left us there. That was my introduction to the religious education world. But it was because I was there that they saw some things in me that I never saw. So by this time I was 17, I was already a catechist. I had asked for basic formation. They had put me through basic formation. And then it just evolved in the parish. I took on different leadership roles. I don't know what they were seeing in a 19 and 20-year-old, but they saw something. And I will be forever grateful that there were adults in my life that noticed something in me that I at that time could not. And so as I move forward in life, I've tried to be that same individual that was once for me, and taking the risk and noticing things in people's lives to say, you know what, you're worth it. I see the gifts that God has given you, and let's see what we can do together. I remember, fast forward, I was probably I was now the confirmation coordinator at this parish. And I had a young person as my assistant. Her name is Natalie. She was about 15 years old. And she thought she could do my job. And I said, Natalie, you really think you can do my job? Oh, Christina, I know I can do your job. I said, no problem. I'm going to give you one day where you can do my job. Really? I said, yes. I pick the day and I give you everything that you need, but you're going to do my job. Oh, she was so excited. So, of course, I picked the day that everybody registers for confirmation. I said, Natalie, that's the day, June 4th, 5th, the beginning of June. I said, that's the day you're going to do my job. Well, what do you mean? I said, I'm going to give you the keys to my office. You're going to be in charge of everything, from the moment that parents start to come to register until the end of the day where you have to lock up the office. You're really going to do that? I said, yes, I am. So I had prepared my team. I said, Natalie's in charge. Whatever she says, that's what goes. And so we had a process. She knew exactly what she had to do to take payments and welcome parents and all of that. This parish brought in anywhere between 2 to 250 registrations a year. That was just year one. So just imagine, for those of you who work in confirmation, how many people are around that day. So at 4 o'clock, she walks across the street from the high school. I see her. I said, Natalie, here are my keys. I literally gave her my keys. I said, Natalie, I will see you at 8 p.m. I left. And I can tell you, I was stressing at home waiting for the pastor to call me and say, well, what are you doing, Christina? But I left because I needed her to know that I trusted her and had full faith. And there was enough people that would surround her where if she found herself in a situation that she didn't know how to answer, there was people that would mentor her, that would accompany her. So at 8 p.m., I drove back to the parish and I walked into the office. She came running to me, said, here are your keys. I never want to do your job ever again. But that moment, you fast forward about 10, 15 years, Natalie is still engaged. She's in the ministry. She now works in the Archdiocese. Multiple times throughout her career, I ended up hiring her in different places. But she is grateful for that someone once believed in her, just like someone once believed in me. And so that to me is Christ living out its fullest and showing that God has given us gifts. We can recognize them in individuals, so let us lift each other up. I have more, but I'll pass.
That was absolutely beautiful. Jose?
When I think of hope, I also think about the other two virtues, because hope is a virtue. Think of love, faith, and hope, and those three go hand in hand. But I think one thing that I've seen that has impacted me, God puts hope in our hearts, puts love and faith in our hearts, but I think He also does it through our parents, and I've seen that hope being implanted in me by my parents. My mom, she was very Catholic growing up. She taught us how to pray. Every night we would do our prayers, even if I didn't want to. My mom was always there. She was very insistent. And just seeing that, her planting that seed in me of faith, of hope, of faith, helped me to kind of realize, oh no, this is serious. This is something serious. And that seed, I remember when I was 14, I lived a confirmation retreat. And up until that point, I didn't know much about my faith. I went to church and just because I was asked to, because my parents would take me. But what I learned in that retreat was that there's a God who loves me, a God who loves me. And up until that point, I never knew that God loved me. I knew that God existed, but I never knew that He loved me. And so it started with the relationship. And then once I started growing in my relationship with God, then I started to realize, okay, he's the source of love. He's also the source of hope and the source of our faith. And so at a young age, I understood that. And I always made it a goal for me to put God first in my life. Even when I didn't understand my faith, even even when I went through difficult moments too, trying to figure out what I wanted to do in my life later on as a teenager, just trying to figure out my purpose. But I had the hope that God was with me, even in the moments of confusion and uncertainty. I knew that God was with me. And that led me to kind of like think about, again, like, what is my calling? What is my vocation? I studied graphic design when I was an undergrad, and my hope was that I would use my profession to not only help others, but also to share my faith and to share my testimony. And long story short, graphic design didn't work out. I graduated, but I couldn't find a job. It was a very competitive field, but I didn't lose hope. You know, I knew that God was with me, and so God always has things prepared for us. There's always a purpose, and because of me going into graphic design, I met a classmate. I met one of my good friends. I'm still friends with him now. He told me about a teaching job, and he worked at a school that helped students with disabilities. And so I saw that as an opportunity. Oh, let me work as a teacher, or a teacher's aide, so that I will be able to serve those students, to serve other people. And also on a personal note, I have two brothers that have autism. They both have a disability, and I knew that this was an opportunity for me to not only serve these students, but also to serve my brothers, because I grew up with them and I was able to serve them. And so then I went back to school for education, with the hope that I would, become a teacher and use my skills and my talents to, to teach others. That's where the nickname Profe comes. Me being a teacher, and I realized that I felt like God was calling me to more. And so I love teaching, but I felt like God was calling me to more. Again, that growing deeper in my relationship with God, the Lord just brings you closer to Him. And I realized that I had this thought of the priesthood, and I started exploring that. And so now, as a seminarian, I entered seminary in 2022. And so my hope as a seminarian is to one day, God willing, to be a priest. But I also don't discredit all of the experiences that I've had, like as a graphic designer, as a teacher, all those gifts, all those experiences. I'm hopeful that I will be able to use that in ministry as well, and to serve not only the people of God, but God Himself. So that's my story.
Thank you, Jose. I think it's a reminder that sometimes we think we have a plan, and when it doesn't work out, God shows you where that plan really is. So that was great. Thank you so much. Thank you all for sharing what drives you. Now let's talk about how this journey has shaped you. Our second question is transformation through service. How has your journey shaped you? Walking the Walking the path of service and leadership changes us in profound ways. How has your journey of serving others transformed you? Personally, professionally, and spiritually? And what lessons have you learned along the way? Mireya, would like to start with us?
Sure. So I guess I'll start with saying that when I graduated in 2018, when I graduated college and I started working in finance at a bank at that time, I thought that leadership meant important titles and prestigious roles. And I quickly realized that, I was wrong. Leadership means making others feel seen, supported, and understood. And, as I shared, I'm a first gen, no roadmap. And I really struggled my first 2 years in corporate America because my colleagues, my coworkers were all, their parents worked at the bank, or, their parents did business with one of the bankers. And here I was, like, my parents didn't make it past elementary school. I had no roadmap. And then I was working on $1 million deals, and I just felt really small and like really out of place. And that imposter syndrome really started taking over. Latin or women in general are a minority, but Latinas too. So a lot of the times, I was in rooms and sitting at tables where I was the only woman. And like that just fueled the imposter syndrome and the feeling of not being enough, not feeling smart enough. But in those moments of like not feeling smart enough or like I belonged, I really like let my faith and God, I really leaned on it to remind me that like I wouldn't have been given that opportunity if I wasn't prepared for it. And I wouldn't be sitting at that table if I wasn't capable of doing that job. So I really used my faith as an anchor to continue to give me that hope that I needed to like not give up and not get so lost in like the why am I here? Like, am I even smart enough to be here? Am I smart enough to be working on deals that are worth this amount of money and like talking to clients that are millionaires? And meanwhile, I struggled to get myself through college. And all that to say that like during that time, I think 2020 was when Vicente and I reconnected after I'd graduated college to talk about where Iskali was headed. And we decided it was time to found the junior board. And in those times when I felt kind of lost and small and this imposter syndrome was taking over me, I would come back to the Iskali community and I would talk to a lot of you sitting in this room, and everyone would agree with me and be like, like I saw this on LinkedIn, or like, congratulations, you're doing great. And meanwhile, I was going home from the office as a young analyst at like 10 p.m. and kind of crying myself to sleep. Like, I don't know if this is for me. Like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. Like, what am I going to do if this doesn't work out? And then I would come here and like really be uplifted by the encouragement and the prayer community that was here. And that really fueled me. And something that one of my mentors told me is that you may be the first sitting in a room or at a table, but you're not going to be the last. And that's something that stuck with me. It's like, I may be the first to be, working on these type of projects, the first Latina, but I don't want to be the last. And I don't want to speak to that just in terms of the finance industry. I speak to any other industry that you are all thinking of going to that's underrepresented by Latinos. I think what matters is just taking the opportunities that God has given you through your hard work and also opening the door for others to also have that opportunity, whether that's in your field or in others, connecting, using your network to connect people to mentors. So yeah, that's a little.
Thanks, Medea. Something that she definitely hits on is at work or in our corporate offices, there are people who don't want to share information to keep you where you're at. So the fact that Medea wants to provide that information, the next opportunity for someone else, the next person, is absolutely great. Thank you. Martin?
Jonathan, I think even to that point, sometimes as Latinos and even in business, and some are engineering firms, some are investment firms, sometimes we're really nice and humble, and we have our head down and thinking that we're going to get rewarded for doing great work because we're working hard, we're staying late. And sometimes you're knocking on the door, and sometimes you just got to kick the fucking door down and say, hey, we deserve to be here. This is who we are. I'm great at what we do. And it's like, and you bring it. As a Latina, and I tell my daughters that too, but we are very great. And I think what makes us special is our faith and our blessings that we have in that passion. And even in business, there's some, like when working on a big deal, like some of my other bankers like, hey, we can go and screw kind of this bank, JP Morgan, who screwed us last time. It's like, no, that's not how we do business. And, you know, it's really like in my office, I have, you know, there's a Sacred Heart right in the front desk. When you walk in, I got a big Virgen Guadalupe in my office. And people know this is who we are and this is how we do business. And it is serving others in every way. And we're there. And I always say we can do well financially and we can also do a lot of good. And it's the way we carry ourselves, and not just in business, but what we do. And for me, even though I'm in investments, like money doesn't really mean that much to me. It's really just a tool and what we could use it for. And even, you know, in the business at an early age and doing well, it's like, okay, I can help my tia and I can help my tios. And, you know, some of my nieces and nephews go to Catholic school and pay for their tuition and give to non-for-profits and give to churches. And even, like, I remember bringing, there's some old movies like Blood In, Blood Out and American Me. But there was and not in your time frame, you wouldn't know those movies. But some of the actors that were doing a play, I was like, hey, I want you guys to come to Chicago from LA, and I want to make it free for all these kids in the neighborhood at Curie High School, and so that they get a chance to meet the actors and they could see that there's possibilities there. But always, you know, that issue of serving others, of why it's important, why it's so key to continue serving. And I think even when I've gone through some really difficult times in business and in life, and I think life is like the stock market. It goes up and downs, and you deal with all the struggles as well. And you can even, what I always try to tell myself, and I would tell my friends or even some family members that were struggling and dealing with depression, it's like when you feel like, you know, everything is going wrong, go out there and do more volunteer work. Go and serve others. There is a certain part of your heart that you get filled from doing that. And you see other people's lives and how you can help. And it brings a certain satisfaction. And you're carrying out God's will as well. But to go out there when you're feeling at your low, and I've been at those lows, and like even having the crucifix and sleeping with it at night, it's like, God, please help me find the way out. And just asking for his guidance. And sometimes it feels like he's not listening, but he is. And, you know, you have those moments where you're just breaking down and crying. It's like, oh man, it's like, I don't know if I can handle this. But going out there and having the faith, but going out there in action and going out there to serve others, because it does help. And it helps heal your heart, but fill part of that heart that you might not get in business, or like if we're working on a deal or building a new facility. And that's why I enjoy doing both. And I feel that in my work, I am serving others and try to carry that with me, but also, you know, in my company and the people that we're serving.
You know?
To me, service isn't something that we do, but it's who we are. And so I've always seen that in terms of I give because it's been given to me, and this is who I am. I say that because I love to dream. So I say I'm a dreamer. I love to dream, and I love to cast my dreams out. I'll share one dream, but then I'll come back to it. When I was probably about almost 8-9 years ago, I said, one day I'm going to meet Pope Francis. That's my dream. So anytime I gave a workshop, it's like, I'm going to meet Pope Francis. I don't know when, I don't know where, but I'm going to meet Pope Francis. I'll tell you at the end if I met Pope Francis, but I'm going to come back. As being a dreamer myself, and just knowing that God and I work together. I don't work alone. We dream together. And so when I was about 22, 23 years old, I was working as the confirmation coordinator, as I mentioned earlier, at my parish. They asked me, Christina, where do you see yourself in 10 years? I'm sure some of you have received that question. What do you see yourself doing in 5 years or even next year? Well, 22, 23, you don't know much. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'll be working here at the parish or maybe in the archdiocese. But there was 2 organizations that I fell in love with their mission. And that was NFCYM, the National Federation for Catholic Youth Ministry, which I work for right now, and Catholic Relief Services, CRS. I love their mission. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in 5 years or 10 years, but maybe, just maybe, I'll be working with one of those two organizations. Fast forward 20 plus years, I'm now executive director for NFCYM, and I serve on this as a coach, as the second vice chair for the Catholic Relief Services Board of Directors. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that Christina from La Puente, California, would ever be in the role that I'm in today. You talk about the imposter syndrome in the Catholic Church, being a female, being a Latina, it is so intimidating. I addressed the United States Bishops Conference almost 8 years ago during the sexual abuse crisis, to stand before the bishops, all males, myself, young, Latina, not so young anymore, but at that point, a little younger, and it was very intimidating, very intimidating. But my mentors always told me it's not about you, it's about those that are coming behind you, and it's setting the foundation. And so how do we continue to empower and see ourselves not as doing, but as who we are in terms of service? I'll share one more story, and then I'll tell you whether I met Pope Francis or not. So my last story that I'll share with you is when I took on this job, it wasn't easy. Moving from coast to coast was a huge deal with my parents. I'm a single mom raising my daughter, and they thought, how are you going to ever raise your daughter in another state when you have no family? I said, I don't know. As I mentioned before, my hope is rooted in Christ, and my faith is rooted in Christ. God will provide. Pero no conozco a nadie. I don't know, Mom. I don't know. God's going to provide. But you have to travel. I don't know, Mom. I will find a sitter. I will figure it out. And He has provided every single step of the way. But when we moved, before I moved, I had a heart-to-heart conversation with God. And I said, God, I'm going to serve you in any way, shape, or form, and I will never put any hesitations to serve you. But I need 3 things from you. You give me these 3 things, you have my entire commitment to serve you until you no longer need me in whatever position. So I made a visit to Washington, D.C. to scope out homes and where I was going to live with my daughter because I had no idea. I said, God, I need stability. I need roots. I said, I owned my home in California. I need something that when it gets really tough, I'm going to think twice before I jump ship. I need roots. Number 2, it's just me and my daughter. If you want me to serve you, I need peace of mind that she's safe. So I need an environment where I can leave her and I'm not worried about her safety, and I will serve you. And number 3, I need a community. You cannot put me in a place where I know no one, and I need someone to ground me. So when I went to DC to find a home, in my first weekend that I was there, I found this community. There's this house that was for sale. Across the street was an elementary Catholic school, and right next to, obviously connected to a parish. I went, I saw the house, I'm like, oh, I can see myself here. Made an offer was accepted that day. I walked across the street, the school principal happened to be there. She interviewed me, I interviewed her. I'm like, oh, this is a good fit. Who happens to walk in? The pastor comes walking into the school office. Happened to be there. He's like, oh, you're thinking of coming here? Yes. Let me take you over to the rectory. I walked away that weekend with a house that was accepted, an offer that was accepted. My daughter was registered at a school, and I was a parishioner in a community. So I said, okay, God, you've got my attention. I'm here to serve you. There's nothing else I can ask for you. And He has provided every single step of the way. So fast forward, your dreams, shout them out. You and God can work together. So did I meet Pope Francis? Yes, I did. So 2 years ago, I took a delegation of young people to Rome to have an audience with Pope Francis. And they got to share their love and concerns of the young people of the Church of the United States directly with Pope Francis. And then he gave a message of hope, of how young people are filled with hope, and to bring that message back to the United States. So I share another hope and another dream. I will meet Pope Leo. Don't know when, don't know where, but I will meet Pope Leo at some point, and there will be young people with me to meet Pope Leo.
Amen, Christina. God will provide. Those such powerful, powerful words, and just amazing. Jose?
Well, hopefully I'm one of those young people that meets Pope Leo as well. But yeah, so service is definitely, rooted in who we are, definitely rooted in our identity it's not just something that we do, and it's not, you know, just giving giving our time for others. And before we can give, we also have to learn to receive. One of the things I've learned is being able to receive love from others, receiving help from others. If I'm able to receive help, then I'll be able to give help. You can't give what you don't have. And so for me, service is rooted in our identity in Christ, and also which starts with our relationship with Christ. One of the things that I've learned in seminary is that there's these three things that we as Catholics should focus on, and that's relationship, identity, and mission. Relationship aspect is learning more about who Christ is for us, how Christ has changed our lives. And as we learn more about God, who is the source of hope, source of love, source of our faith, then we will know who we are. Because God is the one who created us, right? We were made in the image and likeness of God, and that's our identity. And so now that we know who God is, although we won't know him fully, right? You know, there's our minds are limited, but we know we have an encounter with God, with this God that loves us. He tells us who we are. That is our identity. We're his children. And so now he calls us to mission, right? He calls us to service, to serve others. And for me, it's been very amazing, you know, me in particular, going into the seminary and having these encounters with Christ through service. One of my favorite saints is Mother Teresa. And one of the things that she says is that we can encounter Christ in the poor, encounter Christ through other people. And I was reminded of that by a 12-year-old who told me, I asked him, can we get angry at God? And he told me, yes, we can. Because we get angry at other people. And everyone is made in his image. A 12-year-old told me that. And I was like, wow. Put me in my place. Little humbling moment for me, you know. And so what I learned from that is, okay, like, we can see God in other people, in the poor, in our neighbors, the person who's sitting next to you. You can see God in that person, God working through that person. And so for me, learning that I can see God in the poor, in the poorest of the poor, or even in you know, people in our work, in our jobs, we can, our perspective is changed. Like, then we will start serving not only, oh, because this is what I'm supposed to do, or this is what, as a Catholic, I'm supposed to do. No, you do it because you're doing it for Christ. You're doing it for God. And so that's been a huge motivation for me. And one of the things too that I've also had the opportunity to do is go into prison ministry, going into jails. And I'm reminded of the gospel in Matthew 25. If you ever get a chance, I know you guys have your Bibles, I hope, right? Matthew 25 is a beautiful passage, kind of like a call to service. We're able to see Christ in those who are in prison, those who are hungry, those who are basically going through difficult times. And so reading that passage changed my life, changed my perspective that, oh, the service that I do, it's not for myself. It's not just for me to feel good, for me to be a good person, but it's because I'm doing it so that I can have an encounter with Christ, with God. And if we treat others with that same, I guess, perspective, then beautiful things can happen. We'll no longer do things out of selfishness, but out of love for God. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jose. Something that's common amongst our panelists here, it's not about the achievement. It really is about that process, the transformation that happens in between. So really important. So let's move on to our final panel question. One that turns our focus outward to those coming after us. So Jose, I'll start with you here. But the question is called Spreading Hope. How can we inspire the next generation? As Pilgrims of Hope, we're not only called to live with hope, but to share it in your field. Where do you see the greatest need for hope among young people today? And how would you encourage them to step up as leaders and difference makers?
I think it starts with not looking at, looking at the source, right? I've mentioned the source of hope, the source of love and faith, and which is God. And it's beautiful that this year is, the Jubilee year. It's being Pilgrims of Hope, that each and every one of us were called to be Pilgrims of Hope. And I guess a need that I see in today's youth is just a lack of purpose, a lack of vision. I feel like a lot of young people today are just so focused in trying to make it, trying to make a name of themselves, to be successful, to have money, a good, well-paying job, which are all good things, right? God can bless us with that, but I think also there's this lack of peace as well, because we're preoccupied so much in trying to do things that we sometimes forget that we need to take a moment to breathe and to realize God is our everything. God is our source of everything. I'm reminded of the gospel. I think it was for last Sunday. I'm not sure. It was the gospel where Martha and Mary are with Jesus, and Mary's at the feet of Jesus, just listening to him and talking with him. And Martha's, she's so preoccupied about getting things done, and she even tells Jesus, what do you can you tell Mary to help me out? What's going on? I say this because Jesus said, Martha, Martha, you're worried about nothing. Mary has chosen the better part, and it will not be taken away from her. And the better part was Mary being at the feet of Jesus, spending time with him. And so I would say that, I would tell young people today is to think about, where you came from, your roots. Don't forget about your roots. Don't forget about, your family. Don't forget about the God who made you, because, he has a plan for you, and to be with him, and he will show you great things. And to not just seek God so that you can receive great things, but to seek God so that you can have a beautiful relationship with Him, and then things will follow, right? So yeah, I mean, it's good to have success. It's good to have those things, but it's also very important to focus on what is important, and that's God, our family, and also our well-being. So, like,
Thank you, Jose. Yeah, having God in the forefront of our why is very important. Thank you so much, Christina.
I think my desire for you to hear is to be you. Just be you. God already created you wonderfully. God created you with purpose, and be you. I think many of our young people are looking and searching for need for belonging, desire to fit in, and sometimes we are using this secular world to cast and create those images for us. And at the core of who we are, that's who God wants us to be. I share that because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing for the past 25 years if I didn't believe in young people. I'm looking out into this room and I see hope, I see joy, and you have so much incredible things that you have at your fingertips. When people say that we need to build the leaders of the future, I think they're wrong. The leaders are here in this room. You are the current leaders. You don't need me up here to do things. You have the power and the ability to change the world. And that gives me great hope. For 25 years, I have worked in ways that I can continue to empower young people to see themselves in higher levels. When I was first at the parish, eventually now that I'm in the role that I'm in, I don't get to journey directly with young people, but I get to work with the adults who are forming the young people directly. And if the message can come across that young people have joy, that you have purpose, and that you can radically change the world from the place that you are, you don't have to go to Washington, D.C., you don't have to go to California. Here in Chicago, in your community, you can change the world. And that's the hope that I think Christ gives us and the message that we need to share. I say that as well because again, I want to continue to bring young people and provide a sense of belonging, a sense of a vision beyond what their possibilities can be. And so next month, again, dreaming that I'm dreaming, I sat with Archbishop Perez, who happens to be the Episcopal for the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. We were at a CRS board meeting and we're dreaming. And we're like, wouldn't it be great if young people could see firsthand the work of Catholic Relief Services that they're doing on behalf of us Catholics here in the United States, for them to be champions of their own faith? Yeah, that would be great. What would it take? We got to put a delegation together. Then we have to go somewhere and we've got to form them. So next month we're going to Ghana. So next month we're taking a group of young people to Ghana to see firsthand the work of Catholic Relief Services, so then they can come back into their communities and be the leaders they're already called to be. They can bring their community, which wasn't able to travel, but they can see firsthand the work of Catholic Relief Services that is doing on behalf of Catholics in the United States. So you have the power, you have the ability to use the God-given gifts that God has already given you to radically change the world here and now, not into the future.
Thank you, Christina.
I would say that as our Latino youth, you have an ability to impact and spread God's word by your actions. And the way you carry yourself, whether it's in the neighborhood or at work or wherever you may be at, and people are going to observe your actions. And if they know that you have that in your heart, you have the ability to touch other lives as well in what you do. And, I told you the story about the one guy called me a little spick. And, later, as I was doing well, and it was a couple months later, he came to me and he needed help. And he needed to reach a certain amount in his commissions for the month. If not, he would get a lower payout. And he's like, Martin, can you help me? I think he totally forgot that, he had said that to me. And part of it, I had to think about my Catholic faith because I still wanted to punch this guy. And I had to ask God to help me and actually I had to forgive him. And I did help him out, and I helped him out the next couple of months as well, and became friends. So I invited him out. There was a place, Lalo's, had a bunch of Latinos that get together on a Wednesday night, and it was kind of like a nightclub. And so I invited him to come out with us, and he's like a 6'5" kind of white guy, so he stood out like a sore thumb. And but he had a great time, and I'd actually bring him and like 4 or 5 other white guys to my grandmother's house, and my cousins would be there and serving big plates of huevos con frijoles on there. And he started to open up to me. He's like, you know, I never met like another Mexican before. Even in college, he'd never experienced it. I was like, and he was surprised because he's like, all of your cousins, you guys all hang out on the weekends and on Wednesdays when we go out. He's like, I don't even know my cousins. I've met them, but I don't even barely talk to my brothers and sisters. And, you know, it was something that, you know, he's still a friend, but you had to carry out in your actions, and I had to forgive him and also to help him and bring him closer to understand who we are as Mexicanos, but also kind of even our faith. And I think by your actions, you can help out and spread God's word as well. And that's something that is something that's extremely important. And I think anything you do, like right now, you're young, but in 5 years and 10 years, you will be doing great things. And if you keep God at the center of who you are, and it will kind of give you many blessings. Like, I don't think I'm the smartest person in the world. I just think that God has blessed me, and he's given me a mission to go out there and help change the world as much as I can. And sharing his word and his faith brings me joy when I help somebody who may be struggling, or even bringing them closer to the Catholic Church too. And however I can help our community and just others, in, you know, white, black, yellow, whatever it may be, not just our Latino community, it brings great joy. But I know that's where the hope is, where you will go out there and change lives. And if you have God in your heart, there's nothing that can stop you from doing whatever you want to do and changing the world, as Stina mentioned.
Thank you, Martin. You just spoke on someone that offended you, disrespected you in a profound way, but you found a way to forgive them and even help them out, almost like Jesus, right? People that disrespected him, and then he forgave them for their sins. So, powerful story. Mireya, take us home.
Yeah, I want to piggyback about something, Jose, you touched on about the younger generation, you know, feeling kind of lost. I think Latinos and first generation everything struggle with, you know, feeling lost, like you said, but also feeling exhausted and burnt out from trying to make it. I think a lot of us struggle with wanting to make our parents' sacrifices worth it. And if you don't take time to recenter yourself, and like you've all shared, the foundation is Christ and God to fuel you, you're gonna lose sight of what your mission is and what you should be carrying out day to day. And I think that's also my concern for our younger generation is social media nowadays. I mean, I was exposed to it like as a teenager, but the younger generations are getting exposed to it so much younger. And I think that can fuel a lot of feelings of feeling behind because you're constantly seeing others posting, you know, that they're graduating or that they're getting certain jobs, whether it's on Instagram or LinkedIn, and that can make you feel behind. And I would tell, you know, the younger generation too, when you have those feelings, like Christina said, you're already enough because Christ believes in you, and Christ and God wouldn't plant a dream or some sort of idea in your heart and in your mind if you were not capable of achieving it. So really center your faith and go out there when you're feeling, and especially in the moments like Martin said earlier, when you're feeling lost and when you feel like you don't belong, really go out there and show up. You don't have to be perfect. Stop waiting to achieve the next thing in your life, to graduate or to get a certain job, to go out and serve your community, to come to Iskali and be a community leader, to go to your parish or to go volunteer with the homeless. Service is out there, and you don't have to be perfect. We shouldn't be waiting for the next generation of perfect leaders. We're constantly becoming, and we're transforming as we go through life, and you just need to show up as you are, ask God for guidance, and really have faith that, you, how you are today, you're just enough, and that you will continue to transform into somebody that, will next inspire the generation behind you. And I think something that has helped me a lot is encountering mentors, and that's why I'm so passionate about mentorship and scholarship opportunities. But just be the person that you once wanted to believe in you, be that for somebody else.
Thank you, Mireya. I think today reminds us that hope is a choice, and it's definitely built through action. So before we get into the Q&A and maybe our group sessions here, I just want to say thank you to our panelists for your time, your presence, and your courage to come up to the stage. And thank you to the audience here for listening with open hearts. So really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Alrighty, does anybody have any questions for our panelists?
Don't be shy.
Hello, it's Michelangelo. I work for St. Lawrence Seminary High School. It's the #1 Catholic high school in Wisconsin. My question is, and I think it's also coming from a previous talk, and then I think this is more for the people that are really experienced in the middle, is in terms of the people that you talk to, maybe you talk to politicians. I'm not necessarily a person to talk about politics, but do you find that the people in power or people with money or in politics are interested in providing programs or creating bills or programs nationally to promote more traditional values? Because we were talking about in another talk earlier that the primary institutions are family and church. I know that we can't do, church and state is separate, but those family traditional values, our leaders, politicians, wealthy individuals, are they promoting that?
I can take an initial stab at your question. I would say the answer would be yes, but it really does take having to know who the individuals are, where their values are at, and being able to tap into that. I know in the work that I'm currently doing and meeting with different donors is really getting to know and build a relationship with that donor, getting to know what their values are, what their passions are, what their interests. And I am finding that there are specific niches of groups of individuals that have a passion and interest. So I do know that the desire is out there, but it's being able to tap the right individuals. I don't know if there's something else.
Yeah, I think some of the elected officials are different based on who they are, and I've been kind of very fortunate and blessed where I've been able to meet with different presidents and give them advice and direction, kind of for this country as well as other countries. And I never lose sight of the fact that I'm just some little Mexican kids from La Villita and should be like grew up at Petrosky Park. But I think when I'm before those people that are presidents or U.S. senators, I'm there representing my people. And I know a lot of people have a hard time telling them the truth, and they want to kiss butt and just tell them, oh, really nice, great job. And we don't have very many opportunities to tell them, but I have to tell them the things that they probably don't want to hear, and that they need to hear it. And sometimes it's on immigration, sometimes it's a lack of Latinos getting opportunities at Hispanic serving institutions or in business. And some care and they want to kind of make change, and some don't. And some of them take offense to it. And that's okay too, but I think when we're in those positions of power that we have to be very honest and be very direct and tell them, what we see is happening in our neighborhoods. And even recently, with all the ICE raids that were taking place. And Alex Padilla, who's a U.S. Senator for California, he's a dear friend for the last 25 years. And when I saw him getting thrown to the ground, like I called him up and I was like, Alex, you know, and I know he was mad, he was frustrated. And I was like, whatever you do when you're being interviewed, do not cry. Like, don't let them see that side of you because you're so frustrated and angry in how they're treating us. It's like, you got to be strong. And it was hard for him, and he did. And even when he spoke on the Senate floor, but like I called up one of the guys, Ruben Gallegos, who's also a U.S. Senator for Arizona, but he grew up in Gage Park here in Chicago. And Dolores Huerta, I'm like, look, we need to start coming together and formulating a message and how we're going to like fight some of these issues. And it is hard sometimes to go and tell them, but I think if they know who you are and trying to be honest with them, and even for like Joe Biden, like we had to have a talk with them, and it was me and this other guy, Rodrigo Descoto. I know Vicente knows him. And we told him, it's like, you've got to change some of your policies. It's like we've had folks that are here, Colombian, Mexicanos, that have been here 25, 30 years, and they don't have worker permits. So when people come and like other communities and you give them worker permits in 7 days, yes, people are upset, they're mad, they're angry. It's like, you need to change your policy, but here's a solution. This is how you can do it, and this is what you need to do. And I was like, and I told him, I was like, people need to know you're Catholic. And he's like, Martin, he pulled out his rosary beads, like, I have my beads with me. It's like, yeah, you could tell me that, but the rest of the country needs to know that's how you're guiding kind of the country at the time when he was president. And sometimes they'll listen, sometimes they don't, sometimes they'll call back and say, can you come back? We need to discuss some of these things in depth. And, you know, some people don't like hearing the truth, but I think it's scary sometimes. And sometimes you even get into shouting matches and swearing at some of them. And I know it's like it's coming from a place, and I'm coming from when we're like going at it, that this is what we need to do to make change, for them to listen, to understand how upset or angry we might be, but to share that and knowing that there is love behind what we're saying and what we're trying to do and the policies we're asking them to change. So it's always difficult, but sometimes like you've got to stand in the room, and you might be the only one and say, hey, I'm Catholic, and everybody else might be pro-life issue, and people are looking at you like, what? How could you even say that, Martin? But I think you've got to like speak, and sometimes I'll say a prayer before I go into some of those tough meetings, because I know it's going to be a lot of, you know, F-bombs going back and forth, and even some mayors here in town too. So, but it is speaking that truth that I think will help you find that voice and that strength.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Hello, Juan Desiree. This question goes to Martina and Mireya. Yeah. Since you both are like in investments, economics, how did you come to believe that working in this field is part of your purpose, or even something that God wants you to do to make a meaningful impact in the community?
I can start since I'm younger, and then I want to hear you, that your more experienced answer, because I still struggle with this.
You just say I'm old. That's all right.
No, you're more experienced, because this is something that I still struggle with, and I feel like I have come to terms a little bit, even like maybe just as recently as like the past year. It's hard to get lost for sure, and to feel like it is your mission and your purpose. But really, I think leaning on my community and my involvement in Iskali and my faith and being involved in other non-for-profits that have a greater mission, and realizing that maybe this is my job and I can be good at this, but I can show up in a way where, as Martin was saying, you know, as an authentic Catholic person to my finance job every day, but it's not the end of be all. At the end of the day, it's a job, and I say that as someone that doesn't own an investment firm, right? I'm an employee, but there's obviously, you know, important deadlines, and my work is important, but I don't rely on it too much. And I think this has been a recent realization for me is you can be burnt out. Finance is really demanding, and you can be burnt out easily. So if you make it you're 100% focused without having an anchor like faith, it can be really easy to lose sight of what your mission is. So I think separating, for me, this is what has helped me, is separating that it is my job, that I am good at numbers, that I am good at analyzing stuff, and that's what I show up and do every day. But having a life outside of that has helped.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Mireya. Like, I enjoy what I do. I love what I do, and like, I didn't have any money growing up, and we used to joke that we're broke as the 10 Commandments. So we're always behind in the mortgage. We didn't have any money, so we never talked about investments, and nobody in the neighborhood talked about investments. So it wasn't until I was a senior in high school that I took this stock market game by one of my teachers, Jim Artis. He was an Italian guy, and he helped me, and he helped, like, I played this stock market game, and I fell in love with it. And I thought I was gonna be an architect. I was gonna go to U of I, and I played this game. I was like, oh, I love this. I got so excited about it. I changed my major to finance. I ended up going to NIU, and I kept learning, and I'm still learning. I've been doing it for 30 years, and I love it. And it allows me to serve my clients, just like in my faith, but to find solutions for them to help with some complicated issues. And, you know, even we're building like 750 units, but we're out there listening to the community, see what they want. And it's a neighborhood mostly Latino. There's some black, there's some white as well. And as segregated as Chicago is, like, we're gonna be bringing neighborhoods together and people growing up together. And it's, you know, one of my clients is the city of Los Angeles, and the mayor is a friend. And she's like, Martin, I've been struggling with our homeless issue. We have 75,000 homeless on the street. Everything I'm doing is not working. So we've been working on a new way, and it's an innovative program that I think hopefully we'll be able to roll out for her and find some solutions that she can take some of the homelessness issue and then scale it. And so as a company, we're doing it. We're bringing folks from New York and some from San Francisco, but it allows me to carry out the passion of how we can help people and help cities and corporations and carrying out their passion. And I think for me, it is, we do charge fees and we make money off our clients, and then it allows me to give away more. And I probably give away more than, you know, my CFO is like, hey, you're giving away too much. We got to make sure you're not giving, but that's what makes me happy, and that's what fulfills me. And you can do both. You can be great at what you do, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, you know, a priest, whatever it may be, and that's gonna, people are gonna know you. It's like, wow. And even if we're a Latina or a Latino in those positions, people say, well, we don't really see too many Latinos or Latinas in those positions, but they start changing their thinking by saying, she is really great. She's kick-ass. She's the best in this business. You got to go and see her, because that reputation kind of grows. And we did a deal. It's about a $500 million deal for the city of Mesquite Independent School District. And I was like, I don't even know where Mesquite is, but my bankers in Texas, like, it's just outside of Dallas. Large Latino community, about 68% Latino kids. And we're going up against the biggest firms, but we're pitching hard. And the CFO was Latino, but he gave us a shot. And it was the best deal they ever had in pricing it. But it meant a lot to him, but it meant a lot to me, because we're serving those kids, and they're going to get brand new schools built. And it's just, you can go out there and still serve in your faith at work and in your personal life, and donating and giving back and sharing what you have with your family and your friends. your church and other not-for-profits too.
Alrighty, last question. Okay. Hello.
My question is, how do you make sure, well, actually, what do you do to stay focused on your faith and not like let your work overcome you, you know? How do you, like, what do you, exactly do you do? Or what helps you stay focused on your faith and not let work be your first priority?
I'll take a stab at it as well. For me, it's personal, but it's from the moment that I open up my eyes, it's a conversation with God. What are we going to do today? My day begins from the morning till I go to night, knowing that God resides in me and that together we're doing this. And it shifts for everyone. There was a point in my life where people would say, oh, I'm able to go to daily mass. I'm able to have 3 hours of just individual prayer. I can't do that when I was raising my daughter and I had to take her to school and I had to do this. So you find what works for you. But what helps me is having that daily conversation and finding moments, small moments of prayer. And before any meeting that I go into, I make the sign of the cross and say, okay, God, you know what needs to be said. Help me be that vessel of however, whether it's peace that needs to be brought in, a deal that needs to be made, or conversations of healing that needs to happen, let me be that vessel. So making that partnership with God that I spoke about earlier, we're together in this world, making something happen through Him.
I think I start off my day, and one of my friends who's not Catholic, he told me, he's like, you know what I do, Martin? It's like every time I get up, even when I go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, whenever I put my feet on the floor, I just thank God for it. And I was like, wow, that's something. And I started doing that. And so and I go to the bathroom a lot at night. And so I put my feet on the floor. But even in the morning when I wake up and I say my prayers, and then when I'm driving in, there's this Hallow app that I listen to, and it kind of gets me grounded like early in the day before I even get started. And I say my prayers, and I say prayers for my family, but also all those people that I know are maybe suffering and that I don't know as well. But even during the day, I think I always say a prayer at breakfast or lunch whenever I'm having a meal, and I always tell my kids to do that too. And sometimes it makes people feel uncomfortable when I'm praying at lunch and I'm having a business meeting, and some of them are non-Catholic, but I still say my prayer. And some people, I'll ask them if they want to say a prayer with me, and some are like, okay. And but I think it's a way just to keep you grounded during the day as well, and always know that, like, hey, I'm doing this, and am I doing it right? And checking myself too if I know, hey, I think I've fallen short today, or I could have done things better. And just being critical as well, but asking God for some guidance and direction, and for that love and that peace as well, and to try to make sure that I'm being a good Catholic and more of a role model even for my kids.
Yeah, I would say that, like Martina and Cristina, the most important part, thinking back to when I felt the most lost over the past 8 years since I graduated college, it's been the times when I've slipped with my relationship with God. And like Christina said, your relationship with God is a partnership, just like any other relationship you have in your life. You have to work on it and you have to show up. So the most important thing for me when I start my day is to spend time with Him. And I either open up a devotional, Jesus is Calling, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with, which has a short scripture and a reflection, or my journal goes with me everywhere, and I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for, depending on how I'm doing on time. I try to set 15 minutes in the morning, just because, you know, connecting and working on that relationship to start your day just kind of sets the tone. Like, if you just start your day mindlessly, that's when I have the worst days and I find to be the most stressed. So working on that relationship, it's a partnership. You have to show up, and I think just starting your day grounded, and thanking God for everything that's you've been given and for what's ahead, that's been super helpful with me in my job and my day-to-day.
Yeah, ditto. Pretty much the same thing. But the reason why I guess I let them go first is because, I mean, a lot of the things that they mentioned is very practical. For me, like, I mean, I'm a seminarian, and so kind of have to pray. um, but like our schedule is like set up in a way that prayer is a priority. But you know, realistically, I mean, you know, you guys are in the world. I mean, you guys are, you know, have jobs. You guys are going to school, and so it can get busy. Even for seminarians, sometimes it's so busy. Like, there's the temptation to want to like push prayer aside and like, no, I gotta finish this paper. I gotta do this. But I think what was mentioned already is like, no, take a moment and you know thank God for another day, even if it's for 5 minutes. If you have the opportunity to go to daily mass, that's great. It might not be realistic for some of you, and that's okay. Uh, Take a moment, you know, 5 minutes each day. Just think about what needs to get done, and offer that up to the Lord. There's a famous phrase in Latin. It's ora et labora, which is prayer and work. So basically, treating your work as a prayer is also an option. You know, whatever you're doing, offer it up to the Lord. You know, and treat it as a prayer. I think that's one practical thing you can also do. So.
Thank you, Jonathan, for moderating this panel. Thank you, Mireya, Martin, Cristina, Jose, for sharing with us wisdom and how we could become Pilgrims of Hope. So we have some announcements.
One more time, one more round of applause. Thank you.